everyone, this is Dr. Liz, and you're listening to Include with Dr. Liz. This show is about everyone, all people, including you. It's about people and their diverse lived experience in this world. I chat with guests to get to know them, their identities, and their inclusion needs, so we all have an opportunity to understand how best to include them, so together we can create a world where everyone thrives. Sam is a self-proclaimed foodie, try anything once, married, outspoken, transgender psychiatric technician. Known by many as kind, loving, smart, talented, and ambitious, Sam identifies as belonging to the LGBTQI plus community and the religious minority. Sam's superpower is authenticity. What has shone through, even in times of adversity, enabling him to deal from trauma and work towards achieving his dreams. Welcome.
Wow, thank you for the introduction. That was awesome.
You are welcome. Now, off air, you told me your favorite thing to do on weekends was create new memories with your wife. So I want to know, what's your favorite memory you've created so far?
Ooh, there's been so many. My favorite memory was when we experienced Maui together. Even though I had been there before, she had never been. Um, it felt like the first time because of who she is.
Okay.
And how she's able to create those experiences. So
why does she create these new experiences and why did it feel magical to you by going a second time?
Because my wife is magical. I mean, she has a huge heart. She's always down to do whatever. Not to the extreme, but she's open. She knows how to have fun, and she's always willing to do something at least one time. And it was just a fun experience because it's her.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm such a romantic, so I guess now I need to know how you both met.
We met in college in 2013. We were both studying criminal justice. We both have our bachelor's in criminal justice, and that's how we met. The way that she tells the story, she said, I walked into class, I was late. Just putting that out there, I was late because also I was working full time as well, 8 to 5. And I walked into the classroom, and she said she knew I was that person, and she knew she was in trouble.
That's the best kind of trouble, though, isn't
it? Yeah. And then she had me with her chocolate chip cookies because she's a huge baker. So that's how she got me. Chocolate chip cookies.
She stole your heart, Sam.
Yep, that's what happened.
Fabulous.
We've been together since.
So I obviously sent you a questionnaire like every guest gets, and there's a big long list of potential identities, and you ticked 4 of them. What were they?
Male, transgender, religious minority, LGBTQIA plus.
Tell me about your lived experience in this world. Do you feel like, I don't know, you're included?
I would say yes and no. But what I've learned in all my 40 years is that if not everyone's going to want me at their table, and that's okay, then I just build my own damn table. That's been my experience. I've had a lot of adversity and challenges in the workplace, more so than like outside of that. Yeah. Specifically with the organization I work for now, I work for a huge HMO, one of the largest HMOs out there. I won't put their name out there, but I've had some traumatic experiences that included wrongful termination, then brought back, then was a part of the diversity and inclusion training where we are now introducing pronoun buttons. Mm-hmm. So I was a part of that reason why that was created because of an experience I had at an appointment where I was misgendered. I had to actually go for it was a radiology. It started with a radiology appointment. I had a lump on the right side of my chest. Come to find out, it was just dead tissue from my top surgery that I had in 2018. I registered for the appointment, checked in, but then I was taken on to the women's side.
Right.
I wasn't asked any questions. Obviously, they didn't pay attention to my chart, which happens more often than not in the community in general, whether it's with transgender individuals or LGBT, whoever. It happens more often than not that questions aren't asked. And that's important. All you have to do is ask questions. Just ask. If you don't know, just ask. But it was through that whole ordeal, I was offered to meet with the supervisor and put on this presentation. And that was the first time, I would have to say, in the almost 8 years that I've been with this organization, that I felt included.
Okay. Where do I go with from there? So
I know that was a lot, but I had to I had to give you the
no,
back
100%. And I
Yeah.
want to make sure I tap into the right stuff there. So, when you're talking, if that was the first time you felt included, then there
At
was a
this
lot before
organization.
that when you felt excluded.
Yeah.
So rather than ask you to list out, which perhaps I'm going to guess is a really long list of examples of how you were excluded, can you give me some clues on what it looks like to be included for you?
I'd start here. A lot of organizations have these trainings, which I feel like are a big waste of time. I just have to be honest. Um, I think that's where we can start, is like with these trainings. Um, Recognize that we're all human, and when we do come together, like open up a dialogue, like get to know each other. I feel like a lot of people are just on autopilot at work, and half the time they don't even know who their coworkers are. So I would just say one way to be included is to have more meaningful meetings, meaningful conversations, like getting to know one another in the workplace, because that's the majority of where you spend your time.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
Understand others.
Get rid of I mean, I know meetings are necessary as they say they are, but get rid of get rid of the meaningless meetings and create more meaningful conversations with your coworkers.
Aside from the example of when you were asked your experience and to contribute and share on how the organization could do something differently or better, is there another time or space where you felt really included or able to be your authentic self? And what were the conditions that allow that to happen?
I keep going back to this last incident with the training. That was the very first time that I actually felt heard. Um, because not only was I included in the presentation, but I also had a discussion with the HR manager for the very first time. And like I said, I've been in the same department for almost 8 years. So imagine, I felt like the lone kid on a rock, like, here I am, here I am. And to be honest, there's no one in my department that looks like me. This was the very first time I felt included. I mean, we celebrate, pride, things like that. They'll post on the HR website, but how about we celebrate, everyone's cultural differences, like with food or costumes or something. Like, let's decorate inside the building with rainbow or trans flag, like something to actually show that you are supportive, not something that you can post on a website. Like, I want to see action.
So do you think that the celebrations, celebrating or putting up a poster is enough to demonstrate action?
No. Like I said, let's have the meaningful conversations, or be more mindful of our unconscious bias towards other people that don't look like us, that don't believe like us, that don't think like us.
And I think celebrations at least make it feel that it's joyous and not a task, I guess. But if we go back and talk about the experience that you had where the assumption was made on your gender and you were put into the female radiology
Department.
Department, yeah. That was based on process, yes? So it's a system. We've got to change the process in the system, because even if they'd thought about it, they'd still have probably followed a process or a system, and you may still have ended up in the female department. So what systems and processes do you think we need to look at to better include the needs of people that are transgender? And look, I know your expertise is in health, so I'm happy for you to focus on that.
That's a good question. That's why I'm seeking to learn more about the systems and processes. I mean, I know they're wonky, but do you honestly feel like we can change those systems? They're in place for a reason.
Why?
I don't think they were created for minorities, people that look like me. They weren't.
But of course they need to change.
Absolutely. But what happens if they don't?
Well, but they have to, and they will.
So what do we do in the meantime?
There is no meantime. We're changing it now.
Change it now.
Yeah. So I want to ask, like, what if literally after our conversation, I had the power to go away and fix this process? Because who knows, there could be some healthcare professional listening, right?
Yeah.
What are some tips you've got that we can change processes and systems to make it easier for them to make you included?
I would say start with the top.
Mm-hmm.
It always starts with the top. Start with the top, work your way down to the bottom, because you have people in place in these systems who aren't educated around LGBTQ or other races or religions. I think we need to start there. Like I said, get rid of the meaningless trainings and really get to know who you're working with.
Yeah.
And how everyone thinks and believes. Anyone can be a manager, but I don't think anyone can be a leader. So we need to start with the top. We need to do a deep cleaning and actually put people in place that have the lived experience. You can have the book knowledge every day, but I think it helps even more if you have the lived experience.
I want to go back because it
Yes.
keeps rolling around in my head when I
Okay.
said about we need to change the systems, and then you said, but can we? Or something like that. I mean, I can't remember it, but where does that come from, that response?
Because I'm huge now. Like I said, I've learned so much in the last couple of years or so, especially in 2021 when I started working with a life coach to really heal from traumas and things that I held on for so long. I'm a firm believer that everything starts with us. So in order to change this system, it has to collectively start with us, but we have to collectively agree that things need to be changed. So while I do feel like systems need to be changed, that change has to start with me. So I can choose to show up at work and be that change, whatever that might look like on that given day. So that's what I mean, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense, but I really want to highlight it because I don't think that's fair and equitable. I don't think that people that are underrepresented and for the most part of their life have had to work harder or fight or push to achieve whatever they've achieved in life to date.
Yeah.
And I think that there is a huge onus of responsibility and accountability on those that haven't had the same challenges
Experience. Yeah.
to make space
Right.
and to change the system, to make space for everyone to thrive. And it makes me sad that you think that will it change? When will it change? I mean, I want to believe that it's very, very soon. We're on the cusp of it, and we have a way now to do it, and we have enough knowledge to do it. And there's the impetus. I just have to believe that.
I mean, but then some things are just what it is. It's like the system is the system. So you can either let it, make you be depressed, or again, like I said, you could be that change that you want to see within that system.
Yeah.
So and that's what I truly believe. Like I'm going to be that change.
Yeah. I mean, look,
You know?
and that is admirable. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I always have thought around that as being part of the coping mechanism of facing challenges every day. Because if you fought every day, then imagine how tiring that would be. Like
It's exhausting.
when would you
And
experience joy? So I do
right.
understand that.
Yeah.
And that's why I do think it's on the onus of those not experiencing those oppressions to make the change. So I'm
Yeah,
glad.
you're right. You hit the nail on the head. Like, I feel like it definitely is up to the people who aren't experiencing it to be a part of the change. They should be in the forefront. But given the history, that's not always the case. It's always the oppressed that's leading from the front.
Yeah.
It's always the oppressed that knows there's a problem and trying to change it. It's never the privilege, quote unquote, you know.
Let's help them see it.
We're gonna help them see it.
Yeah, and help them understand what they can do differently, because my research shows that 9 out of 10 people now recognize or acknowledge that, you know, diversity and inclusion is important, right? For whatever reason to them, but it's important.
Yeah.
But 6 out of 10 will still say, or will admit, I'll bet you it's more than 6 out of 10, but 6 out of 10 will admit they still don't know how to include people that are different to them. So we want to help them understand the how.
It's crazy we're still talking about this in 2022. How do you include everybody?
There's that statistic that we're 208 years away just from gender pay equity. Now, just gender inclusion, take out all the other identities. We've been talking about that for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So when is it time for equity for all the other identities? It's to get like 10,000 years before we have everybody included. That's absurd. So that's why we really have to embrace intersectionality and understanding that inclusion isn't about those labels, but it's about the whole person.
I'm glad we're having this conversation because I'm learning a lot more about it too, because I definitely want to, like I said, educate myself more as well.
This might sound like an obvious question and that it should have an obvious answer. Do you see yourself as a diverse, underrepresented identity?
That's a tricky question. Can I explain why I say that?
Of course.
Because I have the mindset now, because of all of my experiences and challenges that I have faced, and I've gotten to a place of self-love, loving who I am, I don't consider myself as less than or limitless. But then I do see the issues. Like, I'm not blind to it. I just would rather not put myself in that box, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense.
But at the same time, I do feel like my community is underrepresented. Whether you're a minority, LGBT, have a disability, yes.
So then that does perfectly segue to my follow-up question on that is, do you think other people see you as a diverse, underrepresented identity?
Oh, absolutely.
How do you think that changes how they treat you?
I don't know what people think, but I mean, I've been called confused. I've been called a confused freak. I've been called the N-word. I've been called the dyke. I've been called numerous things. But again, what I've learned is that those things have nothing to do with me. It's more so them needing to look at themselves in the mirror and asking themselves, why am I so damn triggered by someone who looks different from me?
Okay, I mean, that is an absolutely empowered way to see how those.
I mean, I've been ready to fight numerous times.
I mean, I wanted to know, how does it make you feel when that happens, when people speak to you like that? And use
It
those
just
words?
happened. It just happened to me probably before the new year in the medical parking lot. I got into a verbal altercation with this young guy, and the first thing that he said to me was, "Oh, you're a tranny. You're a tranny." And then I got called a dyke, and then I got called a faggot. And a couple of days later, I had an appointment with my therapist because, yes, I do see a therapist. I think it's very necessary. Therapists and Jesus go hand in hand. But I was having this dialogue, like I was walking my therapist through what happened. And he's like, I don't think that guy knew what you identified as. He said, for a lot of people, when they get angry, the first insults they go to are racial homophobic, transphobic slurs. But that really bothered me to the point where like I was ready to go to jail behind it.
Mm.
I was really ready to just go off on that dude and not worry about the consequences.
Where do you think that comes from? Why do people feel the need to say that stuff?
I feel like it comes from a hurt place first and foremost, and it also comes from a curiosity that they probably are afraid to fulfill themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it comes from their upbringing, you know, things that they grew up seeing or hearing. You know, it's a cultural thing. You know, men are supposed to be this, women are supposed to be that. Men aren't supposed to do this, women aren't supposed to do that. I think it's a whole plethora of things.
Have you ever had anyone in perhaps a similar situation where you've been spoken to or called names just in a
Hmm.
derogatory manner? Has anyone ever spoken up for you?
No,
I'm sorry, Sam.
no, no, no. There was onlookers that day in the parking lot that heard every single word that he spewed.
We need to do better.
Yeah, absolutely. As a society, we do.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, I'm sorry. I wish I was there and I wish I could have said something. But you
Yeah.
know what's
Thank you.
interesting though, you
Thank you.
think about our own identities that we bring into a scenario like that. And as a female, I might not have felt safe if there was someone that would sound like an abusive male speaking to you like that. I might have been fearful for myself to speak up. So it's an
Yeah.
interesting dynamic that we're trying to navigate to advocate for others when we're navigating our own identities in the same scenarios. So, yeah,
Yeah.
something for us
Yeah.
to think about, right? Um,
Yeah.
okay, powerful. So that, I mean, really, you're highlighting the power of language. So if we segue onto language and being transgender and you identify as male,
Mhm.
tell me about the importance of language and how I need to make sure how I'm speaking inclusively with you. Is there any specific tips you've got for me?
I think what's important to me is just asking questions. Like if you don't know, don't make assumptions.
Mm.
Um, I also want to encourage you to relax. I find I get it. We want to be correct with language, but if I'm honest, I'm learning as well.
Mm.
Um,
We're all learning all the time.
we're all learning all the time. And you mentioned in the beginning of the call where you had a friend who identified as they, but you kept calling them she. Well, I have the same hiccups sometimes with non-binary folks.
Mm.
So I would just say relax, take your time, don't overthink it, and just ask questions.
Mm. Good advice.
I want to
Um,
make like
yeah.
start off with saying something like, I want to make sure I get this right, and then go into the question.
Yeah, good one. That's a really good way to frame it. I like that. I'm going to take you back to your career and work experience. And I know that you've said for 8 years you haven't felt included except for this one instance.
Yeah,
Do you think your identity and all of your identities, the whole that makes Sam, do you think that that's got in the way of you receiving opportunities for advancement?
absolutely. Even though even though I've had opportunities, I feel like it's been a uphill battle. It's been exhausting and a fight.
Mm.
Yeah,
Has there been anyone that you felt has advocated for you that's created opportunities and supported you?
within the workplace,
Mhm.
no, no.
Do you ever think that people have said no and given an excuse for the no, but you've sensed that it's actually part of your identity that was behind the reason?
Yeah, I feel like the huge reason why I got wrongfully terminated was because of my identity and orientation. That played a huge part, and the fact that I'm outspoken and I speak up,
Mm.
all of those factors played a part in it. I know for sure. They don't have to tell me.
What are some ways you think that an organization can be better at creating consistent platform? for inclusion so that people can be heard?
Maybe include topics in their meetings that they have. Like I said, like talk about important issues. Because it's the people that are keeping these organizations running.
Mm.
Like, get off of your high horse and go talk to the people. I see a lot of people making decisions that don't have any freaking experience, and it's irritating. It's frustrating. Like I said, just because you went to school does not mean that you know how to lead. Does not mean that you can speak for me. And also recruit people that look different than you. Hire people that look different than you. If you want to say this organization is promotes inclusion and diversity and equity, well, hire people that look different, that believe different, that have different backgrounds.
Absolutely. Now, there's always going to be the question around restrooms for transgender people.
Yeah.
And I don't even want to repeat some of the stuff I've had clients say to me. So, if you were making sure that you had facilities that were accessible for transgender people in an organization or in a community, what are your recommendations? How do we do that?
So the organization that I work with has gender neutral bathrooms. We don't have male or female bathrooms. They're gender neutral. So I would say incorporate more of those bathrooms so that you don't even have to question it. It's almost like it's an easy answer. Just incorporate gender neutral bathrooms. Or better yet, I mean, and I wouldn't feel like I was getting special treatment, but create a bathroom for transgender individuals. I mean, they have stalls, that are equipped for like people with disabilities. I'm not saying it's a disability, but you know what I'm saying? Like, create those type of spaces. So then we can stop talking about it and we can move on.
Yeah. I can imagine this is the most frustrating topic for you because it's nonsensical. I get it.
Yeah.
But we need to talk about it so we can kind of give the solution so we can move on.
I mean, because at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is go to the bathroom. I mean, the things that society and people come up with are just ludicrous. It absolutely, it makes absolutely no sense. I'm just trying to go to the restroom and get out. 9 times out of 10, like, I'm in the zone. If there's a stall available, I'm going to it. I'm doing my business, wash my hands, and I'm leaving. I'm not paying attention to who's in the bathroom with me. I'm just not.
I mean, I've been to enough music festivals now, those porta potties. They're inclusive bathrooms because everyone uses those. Yeah.
So are you asking, did a transgender use this porta potty? No. So why does it matter? Yeah,
absolutely.
No,
I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm just trying to remove it as an issue so that we can just get past it.
We're all human beings having this experience called life, and it's like we should be able to do what we want within limits. Is
within the legal confounds. But treating people well,
right?
Now, you also ticked religious minority. Tell me about that.
So I am a believer
of
God.
Okay.
I grew up in the Church of Christ. I'd say I'm spiritual. I wouldn't say religious, because I really believe it's about relationship when it comes to God. But yeah, my faith is definitely what's kept me going.
Okay. So why would you think that that's a minority? Why do I identify that way?
The way that I took it, because I'm transgender, I'm LGBTQ, and I also love God.
Okay.
That's how I looked at it.
Yeah. So did you ever feel excluded from religion because traditionally religion isn't inclusive of people that don't fit the norm?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I got older to the point where I could make the decision whether or not I wanted to go to church, I stopped going for years because it just gave me too much anxiety. And after coming out, I came out. I don't like saying coming out. When I was coming into who I am, um, and I told my mom, she was raised in a Christian household, and so her response when I came out to her was, "I'm not going to let the devil take your soul, and I should have taken you to church more." And and I held on to that for a long time, to
Yeah.
where I felt something was wrong with me. So church just, I hated it.
And what drew you
I
back?
hated it. Because it's always something that's worked for me. I felt like running away from God. I always felt like I was missing something, and I felt like as long as I had Him and knowing His love for me unconditionally, I can keep going.
So the church you're in now, do they include you?
Well, the church that my wife and I go to now, I'm very close with the pastor. We're good friends. Like he's been there for me. He loves me. I mean, when I told him about my transition, his response was, "I already thought you were." Like because he's like, I see a human being. I don't, um,
Oh,
yeah,
one day I hope that everyone just sees everyone as human beings.
yeah.
I mean,
He's been consistent since day one.
so Sam, there are 2 tips that you gave us today that I want to bring back up and highlight because I think they're really great tips to help with inclusion. And the first one was less meaningless meetings and more meaningful conversations. Brilliant. That certainly will go such a long way to understanding each other more. And then start that psychological safety so that people can share what they need to thrive. The other one was around how you start the conversation in trying to get it right, in trying to understand others better and to offer inclusion in the way that best meet their needs. And so your tip was to start the sentence with, "I'd really like to get this right. So how can I," and then whatever makes sense to finish off that question. So they're my favorites from today. There was so much more that you shared that was great, but they're the top tips that I love that you shared. What makes you unique and special? What is the value you bring to this world?
Now, because I'm unapologetically, authentically me.
Mm.
And my mission is to help other people within the community. I mean, anyone get to that place.
So how are you doing that?
So I'm a full-time psychiatric technician, but I'm also building a coaching business as a life coach. I'm about to actually start a trauma certification next month and help heal people out there, because I realize there's a lot of us walking around with trauma that we're just holding on to.
What a beautiful mission, Sam. And the energy that I get from you, I think you will be really good at that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing today and agreeing to be part of today.
Thank you for having me.
And I look forward to following your career journey as you go on from here.
This was great. I enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.